You need to hear this, and not from anyone else, because no one else knows. No one else dares to say it out loud. What you're about to witness isn't a story told in science journals or whispered in government halls. It's a secret buried beneath layers of silence, a truth so unsettling it could unravel everything you believe about the future of humanity in space. You've just opened a file nobody wanted you to see. Maybe it arrived like a forgotten message in your inbox, or you stumbled on it late at night, when the world outside seemed too vast and too empty. Maybe it came to you in a way that felt almost deliberate. And now, here you are, the only one awake, the only one really listening. The question you've never asked yourself before, because it's terrifying, is sitting heavy in your chest. What happens when you land on Ganymede? Not the flashy headlines about ice-covered moons or the dream of colonizing other worlds, but the shadow beneath the promise, the long, slow decay of hope in a place where time stretches and solitude suffocates. Because Ganymede, Jupiter's largest moon, isn't just a frozen wasteland waiting to be conquered. It's a graveyard for the mind and soul, a silent nightmare where loneliness becomes an echo that never fades. You don't know the full story yet. It's not in the news feeds or space documentaries. It's hidden, masked behind official reports and carefully scripted optimism. But it's there, woven into the silence that surrounds every failed mission, every lost contact, every unexplained disappearance. And it all began with something so small, so quiet, a single moment that shattered the carefully constructed illusion of safety and progress. A whisper, a name, a voice no one else could hear. The story starts there. Imagine the weight of the cold, pressing down on you, not just on your skin, but inside your very bones. Imagine staring out at endless ice fields shimmering under a distant sun, a landscape so alien and inhospitable that it steals the breath from your lungs before you even step outside. That was Dr. Mira Kessler's first impression as she looked through the viewport of the Odyssey 9. The mission was supposed to be humanity's bold leap, establishing the first permanent outpost on Ganymede, paving the way for future colonies among the stars. Scientists, engineers, dreamers, all of them handpicked for what should have been a historic moment. But when the hatch opened and Mira took her first cautious step onto the moon's frozen surface, something inside her shifted. Something invisible, like a thread pulled too tight. In the hours that followed, the team reported feeling strange. Unseen eyes watching, subtle shifts in the air, shadows that moved against the light. At first, they joked nervously, blaming isolation and stress. But then came the disappearances. First one, then another. No alarms, no cries for help, just silence. The crew started whispering about the Ganymede effect, a creeping madness that gnawed at their minds. And then it happened. Mira was in the communications bay, reviewing logs from the previous days. Her fingers hovered over the console when she heard it. A soft, trembling voice, barely audible over the hum of the machinery. It was a baby's voice, whispering a name she'd never heard before. Elias. No one else was near. The baby wasn't part of the mission. There were no recordings of any infants on the ship, but the voice was there, clear and insistent, as if carried through the icy void itself. Her heart pounded. She replayed the clip again and again, the name like a ghost trapped inside her mind. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the voice stopped, and one of her crewmates vanished. No trace, no explanation, just gone. The remaining team was shattered. Paranoia took hold. Trust dissolved like mist in the freezing air. Yet the mission commanders back on Earth kept insisting everything was normal, reassuring families, sending canned messages about technical malfunctions and routine delays. But Mira knew better. The truth was deeper, darker, and the silence was only the beginning. You're probably wondering if this is just the stress of isolation twisting their minds or some malfunction of the ship's systems. Maybe you tell yourself it's all fiction, a psychological thriller masquerading as a space story. But the truth, the real truth, lurks just beneath the surface, because the strange things don't stop with Mira and her crew. There are other whispers, Other lost souls tethered to that icy moon by more than just gravity. In quiet corners of the internet and among secretive forums of space enthusiasts, rumors swirl of signals intercepted from Ganymede, fractured messages that sound like voices from the past, long-dead loved ones calling out from the void. People who had never set foot on the moon suddenly claiming to hear names no one else could know. It's as if Ganymede itself remembers, as if it's alive, and it's watching. You might feel your skin prickling now, an unsettling chill crawling down your spine. That's the weight of a secret too large to ignore, one that makes you question everything about exploration, progress, and the very nature of loneliness. Because what if the greatest danger of stepping onto that icy world isn't the vacuum of space or the crushing cold, but the slow erosion of your mind? The way isolation can twist reality until it becomes something unrecognizable, something almost alive. What if Ganymede is not just a place, but a presence that collects the lost, the forgotten, and the broken, keeping them suspended in an eternal nightmare? And what if, by opening this file, by knowing this, your own world starts to unravel too? The final transmission from the Odyssey 9 was fragmented, a garbled mix of static and whispered names. The last clear words were from Mira herself, a message so haunting that it stopped every mission control operator in their tracks. Don't trust the silence, it's waiting. Elias isn't just a name, it's a warning. Then, the line went dead. No one has heard from the crew since. No rescue missions have been able to penetrate Ganymede's icy shroud. The Odyssey 9 remains lost, a ghost ship trapped in a frozen tomb. But sometimes, just sometimes, when the night is at its darkest and the world feels too still, you might hear it, the faintest whisper of a name that doesn't belong, carried on the cold wind from a moon far away. And if you listen closely enough, you might find yourself wondering, who is Elias, and what is waiting for us on Ganymede? You were never meant to know this, but now you do, and that changes everything. The silence didn't end after the transmission cut off. It stretched, thick and suffocating, wrapping around Mira's thoughts, like a vice. That whisper, Elias, it echoed in her mind, relentless, but in the moments when she forced herself to focus, it began to warp. The name slipped from her grasp, changing shape, twisting into something else. She caught herself wondering, was it really Elias? Or just her own fractured mind conjuring a phantom from the cold? Because the truth was already fracturing beneath her feet. The crisp certainty of facts splintering into shards of doubt she couldn't glue back together. And maybe that was the real nightmare. Not the icy wasteland outside the viewport, but the creeping, crawling erosion of memory and trust inside. She wasn't alone in feeling it. When Commander Ellis spoke to her on the comms, his voice thick with static and exhaustion, he sounded distant, as if there was a wall between them neither could breach. Mira, did you see that? Or am I just losing it out here? His question hung heavy, a fragile tether to sanity, but she couldn't answer. Because the moment she tried to hold on to reality, it slipped through her fingers like smoke. Her logs started to betray her, glitches flickering in the recordings, moments missing, replaced by silence or indecipherable noise. Voices overlapped. With her own, words she never said bleeding into the playback. One recording captured a second voice, calm and unfamiliar, murmuring questions she didn't understand. The name Elias appeared again, but in a context that made no sense, like a code or a curse. And then the memories began to falter. She'd remember a crew member sitting beside her just moments ago, only to turn and find the seat empty. Faces blurred, names she swore she knew slipped beyond recall. The quiet hum of the ship seemed to pulse with a rhythm not her own, like a heartbeat beneath the floor, slow and deliberate, counting down. Was it the isolation? The psychological toll of the endless cold? Or was something else breathing alongside her in the darkness? Something older, waiting beneath the ice, folding itself into the shadows between her thoughts. The line between breakdown and something supernatural was thinning, melting away like the fragile ice beneath their feet. And then, there was Harper. She appeared suddenly, A face at the edge of Mira's vision. A presence so unnervingly close, it blurred the edges of reality. Harper wasn't on the official manifest. No one had ever heard of her before the last upload. Yet her voice was familiar, intimate, like a whispered secret from a half-forgotten dream. She claimed to be a psychologist assigned to the mission, someone to help the crew manage the strain. But the way she moved, the way she spoke, felt off. "Your mind is playing tricks on you," Harper would say softly, but her eyes darted away whenever Mira looked too closely. "You have to let go. It's the only way to survive here." But the things Harper told her didn't add up. She contradicted logs Mira had recorded herself, denied events that had seared themselves into Mira's memory. She hinted at things that weren't supposed to be known, at truths buried beneath layers of denial and suppression. Truths the mission's command wouldn't admit, things they didn't want anyone to remember. Mira wanted to trust her, but the doubt gnawed relentlessly. Was Harper real? Or a hallucination born from desperation? A fragment of a mind unraveling in the endless frost. Every day felt like a battle to hold on to a reality that kept shifting beneath her. Like the moon's ice itself was reshaping her. Perception. No one was coming to save them. No rescue ship was coming through the static to pull them back. They were trapped, suspended between sanity and something unknowable. And as the shadows lengthened inside her mind, Mira realized the most terrifying truth of all. Maybe the real Elias wasn't a name whispered from the void. Maybe it was the silence that followed, and it was waiting for her, waiting for you. Because now that you've seen this, you're part of it too. And the question isn't if Ganymede will claim you, but when. Mira's fingers trembled as she scrolled through the decrypted logs on her terminal, a brittle hope flickering within the endless cold of her isolation. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the fog of confusion began to part, revealing a thread, fragile but unmistakable, that might unravel the maddening mystery swallowing her whole. The name Elias wasn't just a whisper from the void. It was a key, a marker buried deep within the ship's encrypted archives. Somewhere, locked beneath layers of deliberately corrupted data, lay a message, a confession, a warning, or maybe even the truth itself. The hidden truth, the one they never wanted her to find. Her breath caught in her throat as she finally accessed the file, watching lines of code cascade across the screen like a secret unraveling in real time. The message was chillingly clear. Elias was not just a crew member. He had been the mission's psychological officer, assigned long before Mira had set foot on the ice-encrusted lander. His final recorded transmission spoke of watchers, forces beyond comprehension lurking in the shadow of Ganymede's frozen crust, watching and waiting. But what chilled Mira to her core was the final line, almost a whisper in the static. "They don't want us to remember what happened before. I don't think I'm safe here." A surge of adrenaline coursed through Mira's veins, as if the icy grip of fear momentarily loosened. For the first time, the puzzle felt solvable. Maybe it wasn't her mind unraveling after all. Maybe this was real. A real unsolved mystery, hidden in plain sight, buried under the lies and the silence. She felt the weight of every sleepless night, every lost memory, every glitch in her own recollection pulse with meaning. She was not crazy. They lied to her. But just as hope bloomed fragile and bright, the screen flickered violently, the transmission breaking down again, shattered into fragments of static and digital screams. A sudden audio glitch spilled through. The speakers, a cacophony of voices overlapping, some distant, others hauntingly close, spilling secrets that sounded less like warnings and more like demands. And then the voice of Elias, clear and desperate, but distorted in a way that froze Mira's blood. "Remember the fall. You can't run from what you lost." The phrase echoed like a memory glitch, pulling at the edges of something she thought was buried deep, unreachable. The fall. She blinked hard, struggling against the creeping vertigo as fragments of a forgotten nightmare clawed their way back, images she had thought were her own dreams or hallucinations. A night from long ago, shadows dancing on the walls of a childhood, A scream swallowed by the dark. A fall. Not physical, but the collapse of everything she held true. A fracture in the foundation of her reality. The unease deepened, like staring into a cracked mirror and glimpsing something familiar yet terrifying in the cracks. This wasn't just a mission gone wrong. It was a pattern. A cyclical wound bleeding through time. The past bleeding into the present, blurring lines until nothing was safe or certain. And lurking beneath it all, waiting, watching, was something far older, far more dangerous than anyone dared admit. It was no entity in the physical sense, no alien presence with a face or name, but a pervasive force that invaded the mind, poisoning perception and twisting memory into a labyrinth with no exit. Something that had been here from the beginning, feeding on fear and isolation, gnawing at the fragile barriers that separated sanity from oblivion. As Mira's fingers hovered over the keyboard, poised to dig deeper, a cold shiver slid down her spine. The terminal suddenly displayed a new message, one that hadn't been there moments before, as if the system itself was alive and responding directly to her thoughts. You should have stopped looking. The screen went black. The silence returned, thicker, now heavier, and with it the undeniable sensation that everything she thought she understood was unraveling, that the story she had lived, witnessed, and documented might be nothing more than a shadow play on a fractured mind. And as the room grew colder, as the shadows stretched and swallowed the last flickers of light, Mira realized with a hollow certainty, the truth wasn't just hidden in the data or the lost memories. It was embedded in her very soul, intertwined with the darkness that had been watching all along. Now you must ask yourself, what if everything you thought you saw was a lie? What if the real mystery isn't what's out there on Ganymede, but what's been inside all along? And with that, the entire story rewrites itself in your mind, forcing a rewatch, a rethinking, a reckoning with the terrifying possibility that the nightmare has only just begun. You were never meant to see this, any of it. That's becoming clearer with every frame that glitches, every whisper buried beneath the audio, every memory that doesn't belong to Mira alone. Because she isn't alone, you're starting to see it too, aren't you? Not just as a viewer, not just as a witness. Something about this story is pulling you in like it remembers you, like it's been waiting. And now, even Mira's not at the center anymore. It began with symbols, tiny marks etched in corners of rooms Mira never noticed until now, a spiral carved into the side of a door frame, a triangle formed by condensation on the observation deck, a smudge of red chalk hidden under the floor grate of her sleeping pod. You saw it, rewound it, paused. She didn't. Not yet. But someone else did. They're out there. People just like her. Or maybe not like her, watching, listening. Not through the ship's systems, those are corrupted beyond recognition, but through something older, something more intimate. Shared dreams, echoing. Words she's never said aloud. Instructions scribbled in journals she doesn't remember writing. Whole pages in a language that doesn't officially exist. One you can almost understand if you stare long enough, if you remember deep enough. That's where the third perspective enters. Disguised at first, buried in the static of a transmission, Mira recovered but couldn't decode. You heard it, you read between the corrupted lines. A voice raw and hoarse whispering from a frequency marked, Official Use Only, Black Ridge Archive. The kind of thing locked away in found footage from 20 years ago, footage the government never released, footage marked with clearance codes that no longer match any known protocol. The voice was calm, patient, too patient, reciting a log entry that began like a confession and ended like a ritual. Subject Delta 9 continues to display residual bleed. Auditory convergence reported. Memory sync achieved at 0432 UTC. They're starting to remember. They're always right before it resets. It wasn't Mira, it wasn't you, it was someone else, somewhere deep beneath Ganymede's crust, or maybe never on Ganymede at all. An observer, an archivist, Someone who's been here from the beginning, logging every movement, every glitch, every deviation from the simulation's expected parameters. Because yes, the idea's finally crawling into Mira's brain, into yours. 2. What if this isn't real? Not the mission, not the memories, not the frozen nightmare of Ganymede, but the you think you are. Because now, with the puzzle tightening around her like a noose, Mira's found a list. Names, dozens of them, hers, others, yours, written in the margins of a report never meant to be seen. Every name has a date next to it. Every date is marked unstable. The transmissions are accelerating now. Time is starting to lose shape, melting into déjà vu loops. Mira begins waking. Up in rooms she hasn't entered yet. Conversations repeat with tiny inconsistencies. Someone says a word out of order. An object shifts location. A clock reads impossible hours. And in the background, always just outside the corner of the screen, something watches. Sometimes a silhouette, sometimes just a breath on the comms. The third voice comes back in fragments. Never on demand, always when it wants to be heard. It says things that make Mira stop in her tracks, like it's inside her head, but also inside yours. You were right all along. This didn't start on Ganymede. Ganymede is the echo, you are the origin. Look deeper. And now the messages are appearing where they shouldn't. A phrase flashes across Mira's monitor, burned in for a single frame. Wake up. It's not memory. It's programming. Another appears in the blood-stained reflection of her. Helmet visor. You're not crazy, they erased you. There's a deeper force at play, something that doesn't want truth or resolution. It feeds on confusion, bends reality at the edges where logic frays and memory fails. It knows Mira's trauma intimately, because it's part of it. It uses it. The fall she couldn't remember? It was orchestrated. The guilt, the lost childhood, the death she blamed herself for. It was implanted like a wound designed to keep her from asking why the dream keeps looping. And it's not just her. That's the worst part. The logs confirm that this isn't the first cycle, not even the 10th. Whole crews have vanished before. They weren't lost, they were reset, erased clean. Some of them never knew they were part of the program. Some figured it out too late. One left a message Mira just found scratched into the inside of a maintenance hatch. If you're reading this, it's already started again. But Mira doesn't run. Not now, not anymore. She's done pretending the cold is just the temperature. She's done pretending the voices are just hallucinations. She's done believing this is all hers to bear. She turns to the camera, looks directly into it. She doesn't say a word, but you see it now. On the wall behind her, just for a second, a new phrase scrawled in something dark, wet, and ancient. They're watching through you. The feed cuts to black. But you're still here and you're starting to remember. A sound you've heard before but can't place. A face you once knew but don't recall. A whisper from the dark. We've been waiting for you. This isn't the end. It never was. The cold presses in like a weight that's not just physical. It's inside her bones, inside her skin, inside the hollow chambers of memory she's been trying to avoid. But now, standing on the edge of what's real and what isn't, Mira knows the truth isn't a thing she can run from or hide beneath layers of denial. It's a question burning so deep it consumes everything. Why? Why was she chosen? Why was this nightmare constructed? And why did it pull her in so completely? She's alone, but she's never been truly alone. There's always been something else in the shadows, something that feels part of her, something that holds every fractured piece of who she is and who she thought she was. The mystery isn't just about the icy void of Ganymede or the vanishing crews, or the glitches that turned her reality into a fractal of forgotten nightmares. It's about what happens to a human soul when the fabric of truth unravels beneath. Days when memory is not a refuge but a prison, when identity is not a fortress but a flickering candle in a dark room, vulnerable to every whisper, every secret that was never meant to be heard. She reaches out to the flickering console one last time, hands trembling. The data she's unearthed, the voices in the static, the names that bleed through time, They're all fragments of a confession she's been too afraid to hear. The program wasn't just an experiment. It was a crucible, a mirror held up to humanity's most fragile, terrifying edge. The cold, the isolation, the fractures in reality. They weren't punishments but tests, a reflection of what happens when the mind is stripped bare, when fear becomes the only constant, and when hope is a memory you have to fight to keep alive. Her voice breaks as she speaks aloud to the emptiness, to the camera, to the universe itself. I'm tired, she admits, the words raw, unpolished, bleeding with all the loss and longing she's carried like a second skin. Tired of hiding in shadows I don't understand. But maybe the truth isn't about survival. Maybe it's about knowing, even if that knowing destroys you. A silence stretches thick and suffocating. In that silence, something shifts, a choice crystallizes, to reject the nightmare or to embrace it, to hold on to the fragile spark of humanity, or to let it go and disappear into the void that's been chasing her all along. She closes her eyes, heart pounding, and when she opens them again, there's a clarity that wasn't there before, a terrifying awakening. The moment you realize you've been dreaming a dream you never asked for, and waking up is the hardest thing you'll ever do. I don't know if this is the end, she whispers, voice barely more than a breath, or the beginning of something worse. But whatever happens next, I choose to see it, to be it, even if it means losing everything I thought I was. The screen flickers, shadows twisting and folding into shapes that feel both alien and achingly familiar. The icy nightmare closes, but somewhere deep beneath it, a fragile light pulses, a reminder that within the coldest void, something human still lingers. Uncertain, broken, but defiantly alive. Then just before the feed fades, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for stories you were never meant to hear. Until next time, remember, some truths don't want to be found.